What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I am Chris, this is WatchChris. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell icon and liking this video if you find it useful or helpful. Today, we are taking a look at Vulcain. Now I've featured a number of their watches here on my channel. They're very well known for their cricket watches, their alarm watches, and they are coming out with a number of historic models over the past few years. I've actually featured their dive watch here on my channel, and today I have the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix is actually a dress watch from the brand, and it is a callback to a watch that came out in the 1920s. The Grand Prix, the name of this watch is actually a callback to an award that they won at the Barcelona International Exposition in 1929. A very historic brand worn by presidents, and it does not get a lot of attention. However, today I have one hands-on to show you guys, so let's take a look at the Vulcain Grand Prix hands-on. Vulcain have a very long history of watchmaking. I believe they were founded in 1858, and they are most famous for their cricket watches. A lot of presidents have worn cricket watches. However, they do have other models, other historic models that are really cool. When the brand was sort of revived, they started making some reissues of those historic brands, obviously starting with the cricket. However, they moved on to watches like the Nautic, which is their dive watch. I actually have one of those on my wrist today. And then they are moving around and doing other reissues. However, this is one of their latest reissues. This is their Grand Prix. This is a dress watch. However, it's named after a watch that was made to commemorate the Grand Prix award that was given to them at the Barcelona International Exposition back in 1929. So that was a very long time ago, and this is a watch that actually is commemorating that watch. So the original watch, and that original watch was to commemorate that Grand Prix award. This is a 39mm dress watch with a champagne dial. It has a dome to the dial, and it is also sunburst. Inside this watch is an automatic movement. It's an ETA clone. It's a Landern L24. It's actually a movement I haven't really encountered. However, it's very similar to a Sellita SW200. That is also a clone of an ETA 2824. All the specs are pretty similar. You're getting 40 hours of power reserve. I think it's 28 joules. So these are pretty common movements at this point. You have a very boxed, double-domed sapphire crystal, and it's a generally thin watch, under 13mm thick. That's including that very boxed, domed, double-domed sapphire crystal, which gives it a very vintage look. You have a 6mm crown that is signed with the Vulcain logo, and then you have, of course, a solid case back with the Vulcain case back. Again, this is sort of a callback to their classic watches as well. A very similar case back that is on the watch that I have on my wrist today. This watch measures in at 39mm, so I've actually measured it a few times. I get around 38.7mm, somewhere in that range. And then you have a lug-to-lug of around 45.6mm, so this will wear well on smaller wrists as well. I have a 7.5-inch wrist. I'll show you this watch on my wrist in just a few minutes. The strap on here is wonderful. Vulcain do a really good job with their calf leather straps. I don't know what it is about them, but number one, they sort of feel vintage. And so far, I only have 2 vintage models from, or vintage reissues from Vulcain. So their straps feel vintage. They're very soft and foldable, so they're very, very comfortable. They're leather lined, and you do have quick release. You have a beautiful buckle on here, and it has the Vulcain logo. It's polished, it's brushed, and it has bead blasting on it. However, it also tapers really well, the strap. I just really like the straps on these. They're very, very comfortable. The dial on here is very straightforward. However, at the same time, really beautiful. And I'll do plenty of close-ups so you can see what I'm talking about. The dial is gorgeous. It is a champagne color. It is very vintage looking. It's slightly domed at the edges. So are the indices. And I believe that the second hand is slightly domed as well, or curved. And then you have a sunburst pattern. It just says Vulcain at the top, Grand Prix right below that, because that's the name of this watch. And then all the way at the bottom, really above the 6 o'clock, it says automatic. All the way at the bottom, it says Swiss made. You have fence post hands on here. They are thin, very slender. At the center of the hands, closest to the center of the hand stack, there is a little area that is even thinner. So, and then you have just a needle for the second hand. Obviously, there is no lume on here because this is a dress watch, but they are giving you 50 meters of water resistance, which really isn't that bad for a dress watch. The dial, like I said, has that sunburst pattern. This is in champagne. They've made it in a few different colors. This is probably the most classic looking color out of the bunch. On my wrist today, I have the Nautic from Vulcain, a really thin, good looking dive watch that can pass as almost a dress watch as well because it is so thin. It almost wears as thin as their dress watch. You get a slightly less boxed sapphire crystal, but it is very boxed, very vintage looking. It sits above that bezel really nicely. This is just a gorgeous watch. I think they're coming out with this in a gold tone as well. Just all in all, one of my favorite watches from Vulcain. Obviously, the Cricket is amazing, but this is just a really good looking dive watch. And I love the blue dial with the patinaed lume, all of that. I really cannot say enough about this watch. I'll put a link to the video that I did about this watch above. Definitely check it out. And there it is on my 7.5 inch wrist. You can see this is a very classy looking watch. This is very classic in style, classic in look, and classic in feel. It feels like a vintage watch on my wrist, and you can see it wears very thin to the wrist as well. This is under 13 millimeters thick, which really isn't all that thin, but on wrist it actually wears really thin. That 13 millimeters or just under 13 millimeters is because of that really boxed double domed sapphire crystal. So that's what's really giving all of that thickness. This is probably around 11 millimeters thick without that crystal. So you can see it's just a straightforward classic looking dress watch. Price on this is $1,300. This is the champagne version. There are a few other colors that are available on their website if you're not a fan of the champagne, and you get to choose the strap that you want it on. I believe you could even get this on a bracelet, but it's not molded to the case, obviously. It's sort of a clip bracelet or something like that, which looks really classic on this watch as well. I think that would look really good. $1,300 for a historic brand, a historic model, and obviously really nice materials. Just overall a really beautiful everyday dress watch. I think it's definitely worth it. There is no lume on here because this is a dress watch. So we'll wrap up the video here. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below about this watch, about Vulcain in general, and the fact that they're reissuing a lot of their very classic historic models, and they do have an arsenal of them that a lot of people aren't aware of, like the Nautic that I just showed you and this Grand Prix. These are watches that people probably don't know about that were part of their history, and they are slowly reissuing watches like this. So it's not only great for the consumer, but it's a little bit of a history lesson of the brand, through their reissuing. So that's pretty cool as well. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. I have always liked the brand. I've owned a number of their watches. I've owned a Cricket, and I've owned a Cricket Extreme, which is their extreme version of the Cricket. And I always regret getting rid of that watch. I want to own the Extreme again. I wish they would reissue that as well, or revamp that watch or update it a little bit. I think that would be a really cool watch for them to come out with. Although I think they're heavily focused on their vintage models right now. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. I'll put a link to Vulcain down in the description. Definitely check them out if you are interested in this watch or really any of their watches, maybe the Nautic that I just showed you. Definitely check out their website. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.